Padmaja, I would like to thank you for coming online. So Padmaja is from one of the largest fund in India, which is Indian Angel Network. And I still remember that day when you have given me an award for MediSponsor, and now it's been funded. So thank you so much for motivating during that time. And thank you, Sunil. Yourness is one of the largest, it's a $1 billion fund. And thanks, Shruti, for bringing all of them together. Hi, Dr. Eugene. Your question to panel.
Okay, so regarding the energy and the COVID situation, can investment in renewable energy support during COVID-19?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an interesting question because there are two perspectives to it. Number one, I think the whole COVID-19 situation has really created a lot of focus on environment, clean energy, clean tech, and the need for very healthy living. And one of the big factors is alternate fuel, energy saving, waste management. All of these have become extremely important and have actually got a spotlight because of COVID-19, because it's become almost a health issue rather than just a nice to have issue. It's become a need to have issue. So on the one hand, there is a lot of focus on it, and we are, in fact, in India, seeing a number of investments and investment opportunities, which are actually very, very innovative, which are coming off the ground, and we are looking at investing in it. On the other hand, to be honest, and life is never simple, is the fact that energy itself at a startup level, if it's high capex, it's hard to do. Because right now, India has faced one of the toughest lockdowns in the world, and moving anything from one part of the country to the other is almost impossible. I would say it's almost impossible to move things without logistic issues from one part of the city to the other. So I think high capex, large volume sized movement is hard. But that has actually thrown up a third opportunity, which is very interesting, is where technology is getting used, where a lot of energy efficiency, clean energy, innovation, which are not only low capex, but also the fact that they are leveraging a lot of digital economy, digital play is being used. And I'll tell you what is also happening further to that is there are companies here which are leveraging their competencies very well. So in the COVID times, a lot of companies came to a grinding halt, and many of them were in the energy space. But they leveraged technologies, leveraged their competencies, brought in technologies, and actually built new models for solving the same problems. And I think that's the huge opportunity of re-innovating, re-gearing, and creating solutions which have been solutions for the new normal. And that's happening all over the place. So we are seeing companies where they are waterless robotic solar panel cleaners, and their business came to a halt, but then they quickly moved it, and they've now conceived, designed, and built a product in the ventilator space. What happened is the business continued, and they're back to their solar panel business as well. So I think COVID-19 has created a huge opportunity of actually going back to first principles and rebuilding companies for both energy and leveraging energy skills to build other products.
Thanks, Padmaja, for building a wonderful base for me to be very crisp to your outline. Dr. Eugene, the COVID scenario has brought to the attention sustainability across. And sustainability for the early stage venture capitalists like us who are investing in the deep tech area, we want to make a difference with very less amount of capital in these times. And for us, it is important as to how IoT and AI can be used for better decision making, for better predictability. Hence, at this point in time, if we were, we would have passed a sustainability opportunity if it would have come to us 3 years, 5 years down the line, that it will take humanity much longer time to adopt those solutions. Today, after the Paris Accord has been signed, sustainability, and India is a forefront runner in signing that accord amongst the 189 countries that have signed it. We know that any company which will come up with a solution using IoT and AI is going to be creating a difference not only for India, but across the world. And these are the solutions which are productized solutions. They are not services oriented solutions. We are looking for India to be able to take a lead, demonstrate it out here, work with the manufacturing companies, the people who are doing either energy consumption or water waste management or other such tools which need to be identified. And once they have built a solution, implemented in India, do they have the capability to go in countries which are far more conscious about sustainability faster and quicker? That's the way we are looking at it. And there are early stage opportunities that we will be able to write checks much faster.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Dr. Eugene. We will come back to you for your energy sector questions. We have another panel waiting, but I just thought of putting you to India so that we will have views on India as well. Now we have Sparsh Kele, who's a young entrepreneur from Mumbai, and he's into financial sector. So your question, Sparsh Kele.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. And so I would like to thank Fincast for giving me an opportunity to ask a question to such an esteemed panel. And my question is a very simple one. So which are the 3 core components that make an organization qualify for investments or for funding? So I would love to hear your opinion on that.
See, the parameters will always remain the same. It is what is the inspiration behind the big vision that you have? What kindled that this is the problem to be solved, for which you are prepared to give your life? Now, that is the assessment that you have to do. And these days we are doing that assessment across on the video conferencing platforms. A very tough task, but we need to do multiple interactions to be able to see what's the factor that is driving you. What are the post-COVID, if you have been able to build a sustainable business model today, that itself is a very good stuff. But we need to see whether you can face such similar big problems or not. What kind of toughest situations that you have come across and won over? If you've been able to win over and demonstrate that you have, because see, we are at an early stage. We don't have any background of what you've done in the current business. In the current business, you may have a life of 6 months to 12 months or 18 months at the most. We need to go back, flashback as to how tough journeys have you overcome. And if you have some demonstrable levels, we will come in and look at it further. If we are able to talk to your customer at a pre-series A stage and get to know why will he pay, how much will he pay, is that particular revenue model sustainable? Are you going to be having unit economics, or is he going to be squeezing you around for the prices? Is he going to be happy? Is your business model going to be such that you will get advance payments from him? There are multiple factors that we need to be looking at when it is a product solution. If it's a services play, we know that the person will pay you after the services are done. We are investing in SaaS companies or IoT product companies. They need to command a premium. They are IP-led businesses. That is a factor that we definitely look at in the deep tech companies.
All right.
So Sparsh, I'll give it a different twist a little and perhaps build on what Sunil said. And Sunil obviously, graciously so, will give a very, very startup focused perspective in terms of what would he look in a young entrepreneur such as yourself, and the promise and the drive that he sees. But giving it a legal perspective, I think the answers are pretty simple. From a legal standpoint, clearly, if you ask me, there are no specific qualifications as such. But if you look at it from a foreign investment perspective, there are sectoral caps, and you got to meet the sectoral caps for investment. Luckily for technology and technology companies, India per se has 100% FDI. So there is that problem gets solved again from that perspective. And then if you look at it from a business standpoint, essentially there will be 3 criteria.
that you will need to watch out for, look for, and perhaps be able to answer or have credible aspects to share with your prospective investor as such. One is ease of repatriation of the capital, funds, and profits that they invest, assuming it's a foreign investment. Or even, so from then you will need to look at what are the foreign investment policies and how favorable are they, both from a social, political, and an economic scenario. How conducive is the environment? And again, as I say, India definitely has some positive and focus around that. So that should be an easy one to solve for again. The third and the most important piece that an investor would look at is availability of skilled labor. And again, that is something that we have in India been able to address and answer and solve for. I mean, like Sunil mentioned in his example, all the technology initiatives that are running out of the IITs and the AI and machine learning and what Padmaja spoke about, the clean energy space, etc. I mean, everything is tech enabled and we do have the right set of skill sets right here. So to me, those are the components of qualification that would have an investor look at in terms of investing in a startup.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Sparsh. Thank you, Shruti. So I would like to call Munjal Shah from Kenya.
Thanks so much, Rahul, and thanks, Fincasa Ventures, for this amazing opportunity. I must say, great conversations and panels, and of course, the esteemed panel members. The question is, what is your opinion on imperatives owing to COVID-19?
So I think there are a couple of imperatives, if I may say so. First of all, with the pandemic, what has also hit the world is a global recession, right? And that's what IMF declared a couple of months ago, which really means that liquidity is extremely difficult throughout the world. Right. And raising money is not easy. The value of money has gone up. So I think one of the very critical pieces which sort of underpins all discussions and business plans is the fact is embedded in 3 words, which is called cash is king. How long and how far can you use your money to make sure that you run further and far? So that's one thing which is very important to remember, because raising the next round is already, for that matter, much more difficult than it was, let's say, a year ago or even 8 months ago. So that's one thing. The second imperative is that the cycles of economy and business building will continue. It happened before COVID. It's happened during COVID. It will continue to happen post-COVID. What is important is what has changed that business imperative. And there I think the only thing that has changed is consumer behavior. Consumer behavior has actually shifted dramatically. It has shifted in number of ways. Number one, I think people are now buying fundamentals. Their demands are really fundamental. So if you look at a lot of the essentials, the logistics, the health requirements, the preventive care, the basic things that you need to buy, that has become the norm during COVID. Will this continue? It will, but one doesn't know how long. I mean, the nice to haves will come back. I'm sure the diamonds will start getting bought sooner than later. But it has underlined the fact that the basics are important. The second thing is, because of COVID and social distancing, what has also become important is the digitization. In India, for instance, 4 years ago, demonetization happened. That was really the government's huge push to go digital. But this time, when the pandemic hit, the digitization was consumer-led. Nobody really wanted to touch a currency note, right? So we all moved digital much faster than we would have moved. And today, I think we are estimating that by 2023, the digital transactions will almost total to 1 trillion and above in this country. That's the impact of COVID-19. So this entire digitization, whether be it payment transactions, be it Logitech, health tech, monitoring, retail tech, agri-tech, name it in whatever tech you like. That is not going away. The world has changed. We are all gone digital. Many of us may not even go back to our normal offices. We will work digitally. So that's the second big change that has happened. The third big change that has happened is the fact that a lot of investors, or at least from our table and our stable, what we are looking at is companies with a solid top line and a bottom line. We are looking, we used to always look at them at IEN, but now the focus is even sharper to ensure that companies are moving towards profitability. We understand that startups and early stage companies will not be profitable at the time that we invest, but are they even going profitable? That's the third, and that means your unit economics, your customer acquisition cost, how large is the market, how quickly will you scale, how will you deliver, all the operational matrices that you will maintain, and so on and so forth. That's the fourth. And the fifth, and probably the last and most important in my personal view, is people. Pre-COVID, the number of entrepreneurs the number of people who were going entrepreneurs has been high in India. India is the fastest growing startup ecosystem in the world. During COVID, the number of companies which sort of stayed the ground and just made sure that they stood standing and did not fall. I think that was imperative to understand the grit and resilience and tenacity of the entrepreneurs. It is those who will now run the marathon and win. The probability is extremely high. So what COVID-19 has done as an imperative on people has ensured that the resilience level, the tenacity levels, the perseverance, the patience has had to be drilled in much higher. And therefore, post-COVID, it is these people who will lead, who will build businesses which will become not only valuable in terms of valuation, but valuable in terms of top line, bottom line, valuable in the impact that they create, and they are going to create the value of creating, hopefully, a newer and cleaner world. So I think COVID is a paradigm shift. And I thank you for the question, because that's a wide question, but I think it's an imperative question, more than just imperatives for COVID-19.
Great. Thank you, Padmaja. Thanks.
Thank you, Padmaja. Thank you, Sunil. On behalf of Fincasa, I would like to thank you all. Thank you, Shruti.